Hi, and welcome to this edition of Reliability Expo. I'm George Williams, CEO of Reliability X, and today we've got a special treat. If you're a Maximo user, you're going to really enjoy this session. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a solution called testgrinder. Testgrinder is an automated script writing and execution solution for Maximo. So essentially, you write scripts and it manages or executes or manipulates or acts as a front-end user for the Maximo solution. So we're going to take a look at exactly what this system can do some pros and cons, run it through its paces, you name it, we're going to do it. Enjoy the show. So what exactly does testgrinder do? Well, testgrinder automates the interaction with Maximo. So essentially, it creates virtual users, or TG bots as they call them. And those TG bots run scripts as though they're a user. They log into Maximo and run the system. In addition, you're saving time. There's not resources executing the test scripts where they have to do screen captures and put them into a Word file and all kinds of stuff. We'll get into that when we look at the testing. And above all that, while it's doing that, it captures screenshots, it captures video, it captures all those things that you can then use for training purposes. And it does all this through scripts that are written in English. So it uses not typical code language, but more of an English language to write the script. So you as an end user, you don't have to be IT writing scripts here to test the system. You can be an end user that does this to create training videos. You can be an end user that does this to edit data in the system. So all these things are possible using testgrinder. Okay, so I've logged into testgrinder at this point. This is their main login screen. It's basically their home page, but up here gives you access to different tests and environments. So if I click on Test Suite, we're going to kind of take a look at how this is structured. So let me get out of your way just a little bit here and zoom in. So on the left-hand side, you'll notice it's structured very much like a Windows Explorer setup. Now this is done through the development or creation of both features and scenarios. So features create all these folder structures, and then inside those you've got a variety of scenarios. So in this case, we've got a scenario called assets. And in this scenario, we have a test script, and we'll kind of walk through some of the language on this test script so you can see it. Zoom in just a little bit more. So essentially, we're saying in the feature assets, which is this folder in the scenario called assets, we've got some tasks to execute. Now, what you'll notice is this isn't written in like SQL or some code. It's written in the English language. So let's take a look. It says, given that I display the following on-screen message, this test confirmed. So there's going to be a pop-up box that says, hey, here's what this test is for. And then I log into Maximo as a user. And then it says I go to the assets, and there's this little function in here where they've got a variable. And you'll notice down here it gives it says examples and has a list. These are the variables that are going to get run. So in this scenario, they're actually going to test it twice. They're going to test it going straight to the asset application, then they're going to go assets. So they're just testing that you can get to the screen in multiple ways. Then I initiate a search at the assets table, and I choose the first row. So it's doing a basic, hit search, or the way you would hit an enter key, get a list. It's grabbing the very first asset. It's then going to the assets tab of the assets application, and it's checking that the model number field is immediately above the serial number on the screen. So if you have modified your Maximo screens, this test script is testing that where you said they were going to be located is exactly where they are located. And so that's all it's doing. So we're going to run this real quick just so we can kind of see what a run looks like. To do that, we simply either right click or on my touch screen hold down, hit the run button. Now, here you can give the run a name and essentially tell it whether or not you want to record video and screenshots. We've selected all, so we're going to get both video and screenshots. I hit the run button, click on view run, and I can see that there are 2 tests that this is going to run right now. And at any given time, I can start watching that test live. So I can come here, hit the watch, and it's going to essentially pop up what's happening. So we just logged into Maximo. We just kind of missed that one because we hit it a little bit late. We're now inside the Maximo application. We've gone to the start menu. We've hit assets and assets. It's going to take us to the assets application. Clicking on search should grab the first one. It did. It should then come over here and verify, look, model number is above serial number. It logs out of the system. So that one's done. We can watch the video at any point in time. In addition to that, because we told it to take screenshots, we've got all the steps that it was doing. So given I log in as a Maximo user, I go to the assets application, and let's see, I click on the assets tab. So you'll see that the cursor is actually on the assets tab. So it's doing and taking the screenshots for every single step in that test. So both tests have executed at this point in time. I can watch the second video, which will pretty much be the same thing. So it's saying, look, I'm confirming that the assets have a model field. I'm logging into the system. I'm then going to go over and click on my drop-down menu. I'm going to the assets application. In this case, it went down to a secondary application. Remember, there was a couple of items in the parameters that it created. Clicks on the first asset, clicks on the tab, goes, checks the model number, exits out of the system. And again, we've got all of our screenshots. We've got everything that we really said to go execute, all embedded. Okay, so now let's see what this system can really do. Let's assume you're going to do a technical upgrade or a patch release is coming and you want to make sure that the patch release doesn't impact anything you have modified, customized, configured inside the system. So things like workflows, manipulating where fields are on the screen, all kinds of things that you may do for your system specifically could become compromised with a patch release or a complete version release of Maximo. And so you want to test the entire system to check to see, what did or didn't come over cleanly. There's some advantages to that. Not only, if you do the internal development, but if you outsource the development, this will give your outsourced service provider a really good understanding of what they have to work on to give you a scope of work to manage that technical upgrade or that patch release. So in this scenario, we're in our test suite. There's a total of 193 different tests that are in this solution for this example. And they're not minor things like just go check the asset. I mean, we're going to randomly click a couple here, and you can see this is, how many steps is this one? This is 199 line items in this script. So imagine if you're writing a test script for an end user to test the system, and they've got 100 and, I guess with spaces, maybe 150 different things to click on or type in and enter. And in addition to that, take screenshots to prove that the test passed or failed and where the test passed or failed. And again, there's just lots of different scenarios here. And this one's 114 plus. This one's 30. Like, it all depends on which one you're looking at, but they're not minor in nature, I guess is my point. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run this entire suite of tests. So I hit run. You can name it if you want to name it. I'm going to take screenshots of every single step. So that's thousands of steps. There's, I could get this number wrong, but there's, roughly 2,000 different steps, maybe even more in this scenario, in these scenarios. And we're going to record video of every single one of them. This would take weeks to do manually with end users. So let's take a look at how long it takes this system to do it. So we can do the view run button, and we see basically there's already 12 of them running. So by the time we hit view run, we're at 34. There are 34 tests being run. We've actually finished the first one, which is just a connection test, so it's pretty simple. So essentially, we're running, and we can pick any one of these and watch it live while it's happening. So let's do that now. Let's select one of these to watch live. We'll pick one that's still running, so let's take a look at this one. So essentially we're entering a location, it's entering a description, it's selecting an operating location type. So it's doing a variety of things, and at any point in time we can change this and go watch something else. We've got a couple that have finished. Let's take a look at one that has finished. So this confirms that condition monitoring has ignored something about a dashboard. So let's see what it's doing. It's going to the drop-down menu, go to Assets, Condition Monitoring. It's hitting a new button. It's going to sign out. It says, do you want to save your changes? So I guess it's just double checking that the pop-up comes up. And we're done that one. We've had our first one foul, so you can see here in red, this means it's fouled. So we've got green items are finished, blue items are being run by a bot currently, and we've got 50 being run because there's 50 bots working on this. We'll talk about bots and things of that nature in a little bit. But we've had our first failure, so we can we've got a couple of them actually, so we can take a look at the video and see where this fouled. This one says to verify the ability to sort inventory records by a default bin. So again, we're logging into Maximo. Going to inventory and the inventory application inside the inventory module. It's doing a search. It's clicking on default bin. And it's fouled at this point. If you notice when it went over there, there were no default bins identified inside the solution. So it didn't have the ability to grab something based on its default bin because they weren't populated. Selecting the same storeroom. We log into Maximo. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time just watching it manipulate Maximo, but this is pretty cool. And again, these items can be saved. They're saved video files or screenshots that you can use for either quick reference cards as screenshots or to leave as video training. So you can take these videos and either dump them into something like Captivate and manipulate them there, or even just save them the way they are into a shared folder so that folks can then go look at them. Yep, so this is now over. So all of these scenarios, again, we've got a few that have fouled, we've got a bunch of them that are still running, and a whole bunch of them that are finished running. And I don't want to pick really long ones, so let's pick something a little bit short. What do we got here? Enter a work order on the labor transactions. That should be pretty simple. So this is to verify that a work order can be specified from the labor transactions table or from the labor transactions application. So we're logging into Maximo, going to the menu option, going down to work orders, work order, labor reporting. We've got a list of items here, and it hits new row. It's making sure that you can actually enter the data on a new row, and you can sign out. So it was just making sure that from that application you have the ability to enter data. Let's see how we're doing in total test. So at this point in time, let me kind of zoom in here so that you can see this. At this point in time, we've run a total, let's get in a little closer. We've run a total of 100, there's 193 scenarios, 143 have succeeded and 8 have failed. So we are moving right along. We're only 6 minutes into this test. So consider the fact that this is weeks of work to write scripts. Well, you're still gonna have to write scripts, but we'll walk through how simple that is. in addition to that, you've got to get end users or IT folks to test the system. And that's where the resource load really is. And in using this tool, that resource load virtually disappears and gets replaced with bots. Now, you don't necessarily have to have 50 bots. From what I see, 50 bots is doing the entire test in minutes, right? But usually you're not going to try to purchase 50 bots, and we'll go through the pricing when we do the pros and cons and all that stuff. But realistically, if you have 5 bots, you can do pretty much what you need to do in this system unless you're doing this full system test. And there's a mechanism with them to kind of rent bots, right? And so you can call them up and say, hey, I need 50 bots for the next week. And they'll give you special licensing just to do that for that week. So there's a lot of options there. They're really good folks. They'll kind of work with you on that type of stuff. So we've only got 7 left to run. So this is going to end pretty quickly. We're only 7 minutes and 38 seconds into the test. And we're pretty much done everything. So let's kind of expand some of these and look at what some of the screenshot pieces look like, just so you get an idea of some of that. So if we want to look at this one here, had something to do with, let's get one that's got a bunch of steps. So we've got a bunch of steps here, multiple route sequences. I successfully saved the record. Let's look at what that step looked like on the screenshot. So we've got a screenshot that shows you that this record was actually saved. And so it's pretty clean and simple. If you're doing this as an end user, you're taking this, doing a print screen, dumping it into a Word file and saying, yes, I've saved the record. You might be recording the transaction. Otherwise, this system's doing this all for you. So let's see where we're at. So we are finished. The entire run took 8 minutes, 8 seconds. 8 minutes, 8 seconds to run 200 scenarios. That's pretty slick. So we can essentially go back to this at any time. The entire scenario run or test script run is saved. So if you want to save it, I mean, I can hit delete, but if you come back to review, I can see 9 minutes ago I ran this test. I can go back to it at any time and get all the information. It saves all the video, saves all the screenshots. You can download those at your leisure. But yeah, that's just crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, so let's take a look at some sample scripts so you get an idea of how some of these are set up and what some of them can do. There's additional functionality for this system to edit data in the system, which is something that an end user typically has to do through the front end, or if they want to do it in mass, they have to get IT to write a script to upload it. And when you do that, you lose the audit trail, or they have to manipulate an audit trail. With testgrinder, because it's logging in as a user and manipulating the front end of Maximo, all of the audit trails are valid. And so if we want to load data, we're going to load data. So this script is basically saying go into the system, and I'll talk about what this looks like on the bottom in a second, and go to each one of these records one at a time and enter the location, the parent, the description, the P&ID, GL account, model number, serial number, save the record, and then go to the next record and do the same thing. So you can take your data from Excel and drop it in here as columns, just the way this is set up. So if you follow the way this is set up, let's kind of zoom in so you get a slightly better look at that. So if you set up your data to dump in here from Excel in just this type of format, and you're basically putting in parameters. So instead of saying the location name you want typed in there, you're saying grab it from this location column. Grab description, grab P&ID, grab the GL account. You're basically saying do all of these things. And then it's going from record to record and entering this data, hitting save, clicking the new button, and starting over. And so you can basically put thousands of records in here, run the script when you go home, you come back the next day, everything's entered into Maximo. Some scenarios where you may want to do that, let's say you want to take all of your, I don't know, your PM frequencies that currently say 1 month and you want to change them to 4 weeks. Well, you just basically do the same thing. Go to each record that, you do a filter for everything that says 1 month. You get a result set. You then go to each one of those records one at a time, modify the 1 to a 4, modify the month to weeks, hit the save record, go to the next one. And it'll do all that while you're not at your desk and somebody else is doing all the typing. So really, really cool functionality here as well. All right, so I think at this time we've kind of covered what the system can do. In my opinion, it blows me away, quite honestly. I'm from pharma, and when we had to do this was an extensive amount of work. Even just to get data loads done, we had to have a special tool. At least in my history, we had a special tool just for that. However, it was extensive to have developed and built. And then to do testing and have user acceptance testing done was a massive amount of effort. It was weeks of work to coordinate people to do tests and to take screenshots and compile those files and then verify those files. It was extensive. And even then, regression testing was just another nightmare, right? So you've got to write all the scripts to do the regression testing as well. So this allows you to do a lot of different things. One other feature that you can use this for, if you're a developer of Maximo, is to do development based on the user requirement, right? So you write the test first and see what breaks. And let's say you want to write it, you have got a user requirement to have the model number above the serial number on the asset record. Well, you write the script first before you even try to do the development work, and you see where it failed. And then you can do your development work to make that step succeed. And so you develop by test, right? So you test the system and develop by that test. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at what it takes to really write a script inside testgrinder. So I've got a scenario here that's just my own, and we're going to see, how does it really work when you're trying to write a test script. So everything kind of starts with the keyword. So I type in the word given, I hit space, and I can kind of just type in log. So once I type in log, what you'll see, and let's kind of zoom in here so you can see this a little bit better. You'll see that it's now saying, well, what do you want? In this case, it says I can select from a bunch of things that have the word log in it. So in this case, it says I log into Maximo as a role. So that's the one I want to select. So I'm going to hit that one, and it's asking me what the role is. So I'm going to type in user. And hit enter. And then it's asking me what do I want to do next. So I'm going to type in go. Oops, not Z, go. So intuitively it pops up when I type in go. It says go to a path or an application. So I can select that. And it's asking me what path do I want to choose. And with a path in Maximo, it's the menu bar and then what you've selected separated by slashes. So if it's assets, it's assets/assets. So that's what we're going to type in. So we're going to type in assets, put in a slash, assets. Now it's bringing up, so because I typed in click, it's bringing up a bunch of stuff here. It says, okay, give me some options here. But let's say you want to record a value. So you start hitting record. It's like I want to save the record, or I'm going to record the total number of something. So it intuitively knows keywords and asks you what keywords you want to enter into the system. So it's not really that complicated as you might think to learn how to create these scripts. So it's actually a pretty short learning curve. Once you learn a few keywords and some rules, which are, use capitalization in the beginning of your commands, the rest of it is kind of fill it out and understand where you're navigating in Maximo and what different things are called on the screen. And you can pretty much learn this as fast as I did, which, I'm not too bright. In 15 minutes of training, I was able to at least get that far, so I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, let's take a look at some pros and cons associated with testgrinder. First and foremost, it's quick. You saw how fast it can run 200 scripts with a few thousand line items. It did it in 8 minutes, which is just ridiculous. Now, you're probably not going to want 50 bots, at least you might if you're actually doing that type of test. But on a day-to-day basis, you're probably not the size of an organization that's going to require 50 bots. But for your technical upgrade, one-time use, 50 bots, fast. And even if it was, let's put this into perspective, 50 bots did 200 tests in 8 minutes. You cut that down to 5 bots, it's still an hour and a half. So it's lightning fast compared to having users type in the system and the cost of a user to have to type in the system. So it's lightning fast. They're virtual users. Again, you don't have the resources that you have to pay here. So once you have the test script, they just run. The code is in English. It's not really, it's code, but they've converted the code to understand the English language, so to speak, right? So you're using English words to execute what is typically done through code. So the learning curve really drops because of that. Screen and video capture. So while it's doing the test, takes screenshots, takes video, saves those. You can use those for references or training purposes. That's really cool. Data entry and editing. Seriously, I instead of me typing in a system for 2 days to change stuff, I can just write a script and have it do it for me. That's phenomenal as an end user without having to get IT involved. That also kind of reduces cost, right? Because as the end user, you'd still have to put the file together. Then you got to get IT involved. They've got to write a script, and you've got to kind of run all those things. Otherwise, right now it's run a script, done. Nice, like that too. Let's take a look at a few more. Learning curve, we just kind of said that. It's written in English, so I got really 15 minutes overview of this system before we kind of did this. So it's not too bad. It's pretty easy to find things. It's pretty simple to get this going. Test to development. So essentially you can decide what your requirement is, write a script to test against it, and then develop based on what fails. And so you can kind of reverse the development process. Which is actually a trend nowadays, so that if you're not sure of what that is, your IT folks probably are. Vendor scope, so this can help you look at what breaks so that you can scope your technical upgrade appropriately with your solution provider or your vendor. So they know exactly how to price your technical upgrade because you already know what does and doesn't work based on running the scripts. And it's a SaaS solution. So this is a, in the cloud solution. You give them a tunnel or a gateway to your Maximo system, log in from the cloud and run everything from the cloud. You don't have hardware involved here. You don't have storage and memory. Everything is managed on their, through their solution. So that's pretty cool. All right, so that's a lot of pluses. What about some cons? What do we got on the con side of things? Honestly, I don't see a whole lot, and I'd like to try to find things. The biggest thing I can see, honestly, is that this system does not allow you to record what you're doing and create a script from it. That is, according to them, and I've had this conversation with them when we were doing that 15 minutes of training, that is on their path forward, and they are currently working on that. But as of today, you can't record your steps and then have it transcribed into a script. And so we've got a con associated with that. So all in all, this is, in my opinion, one of the best tools I've ever seen for Maximo. There are a lot of different bolt-on tools, scheduling tools, things that do a lot of different things from a Maximo perspective, mobile platforms, all kinds of things. This thing's pretty incredible. It's pretty slick. I'm really happy that I got an opportunity to kind of show it to you today. And so we'll do some final words, and that'll be it. So just a few closing thoughts. If you want more information, you can go to testgrinder.com, and down in the bottom corner of their webpage, you'll see a little pop-up box, kind of chat box there. You can reach out to them and ask them any questions you may have. Generally speaking, it's about $24.99 per user or bot or any combination thereof, depending, and if you have a large organization, many sites, I'm sure you can give them a call about if there's any opportunity for special pricing. As part of this product demo, they've actually offered us a code that you can enter. So if you enter the code ReliabilityX as your code at your initial acquisition of users and or bots, you'll actually get 10% off. So let's say you need 1 user, 5 bots at $24.99. I guess that's just under $15,000. You'll get $1,500 off of that purchase price. So if you use the code ReliabilityX, you'll get 10% off. I don't quite know exactly how long that's going to stand. Hopefully it's for the next couple of months. It's March 2020 right now, so let's hope that stays up. I guess we can kind of work with them on how long that's there, but take advantage of that as soon as you can. That's going to save you a boatload of money. Thanks for joining this edition of Reliability Expo. I'm George Williams, CEO of ReliabilityX. Hey, if you would like your product reviewed by Reliability Expo, contact us at ask@reliabilityx.com. We'll set up a time where we can either come onto your site, or you can ship us your product or give us access to your software, and we can do a product review for your organization as well. Contact us at ask@reliabilityx.com.